Welcome back. It's the Dan and Jared show. Much love from the mushroom. It is July 26th. Summer is moving way too fast, but definitely enjoying it. Another hot day in Philadelphia. Something I want to talk about today. We usually talk about psychedelics. We usually talk about microdosing. We kind of started this show off as being something with like spirituality, self-improvement, psychedelics included. But I kind of wanted to touch upon like that spirituality facet a little bit. So I guess my first question is, why do you think religion and like spirituality kind of go hand in hand with psychedelics? Because it seems like they do a little bit. Why do you think that is? Or do you
Um,
agree, disagree, and don't think that is?
no, yeah, I do agree. So I do think that like spirituality and religion are both tied, kind of different vehicles to get to the same place. I was talking about this with a friend recently, who like I'm someone who I normally talk in very spiritual terminology, and he is a friend of mine. He's very religious, and he brings it up. And as a younger kid, I think I've touched on this before, but as a younger kid, I sort of had a more negative connotation about religion, and just the word God was like kind of a like it just had a negative connotation to me. But recently, I had me and my friend who's very religious. We were going back and forth about spiritual concepts, and we were just using different words for the exact same stuff. And it was really actually beautiful and wholesome to see how like it's just different words to get to the same destination. And I think that interaction allowed me to kind of take some of the weight and some of the connotation away from what I used to stigmatize with religion. I think it just the structure of it used to freak me out a little bit, but a lot of people need that structure. I'm just a different type of personality. Even in normal life, I don't like structure. So I think that's why spirituality personally for me was good. But going to the relationship with psychedelics, I think it's something that we're talking about getting to a destination, right? And whether it's spirituality and meditation, or whether it's prayer and being in a room full of other people praying. I think psychedelics are something that can allow you to get to whatever that destination is, the source, whatever you want to call it. I feel like it can kind of bring you there in a much more visceral way where you can feel it throughout your whole being. When sometimes I feel like a lot gets lost in interpretation, a lot people might get too caught on the individual words. Whereas I feel like when you're having a psychedelic experience, that you can almost feel that feeling of love or that feeling of God or that energy flowing through you in a way. At least for me personally, like before I started doing psychedelics, I wouldn't say I had a relationship with God. But now that like I've experienced what that means for me and what that energy feels like in my own words, and I felt it, to my core. I was like, oh, I was just getting lost in the structure of the words before, but this is a feeling. It is a thing that everyone else is getting through their own mechanisms. So I think that's why they're related, and I think that's why certain like tribes and certain religions have been using psychedelics for thousands of years to help bring group ceremonies to feel that connection a little bit more intensely.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. Something that you said that resonated with me a bit is you kind of said that like psychedelics just help you get there and help you like maybe like see that or feel like the relationship with God a little bit more. And what that reminded me of is like kind of meditation and psychedelics, how you when you meditate, you can kind of get to this place that's kind of like this Zen feeling, and you have all of these feelings. And with psychedelics, it helps you get there a lot easier, but you don't need the psychedelics to get there. And I feel like with religion, it's a little bit the same. You kind of feel a relationship or a closeness to God that you don't necessarily need with psychedelics. But when you take the psychedelics, it helps you like take down the walls a little bit um, and really like experience that relationship a little bit more. So I don't know if that makes sense at all, but I feel like it helps you just like break down the barriers of what you're trying to feel.
Exactly. Yeah, I think for me it was like I was in a state of resistance, like I said before. So it's like I feel like that helped with me kind of be in a state of non-resistance when it comes to, like I said, like the word God. To me it was just like, oh well, I don't know, this all-encompassing, aggressive, patriarchal, masculine, like it's just we all have our different perceptions of what that means, and I think I was so solidified in my understanding of what that meant for me that it made me want to push back. Whereas with psychedelics, like it might not even like be directly the thing that's getting you there. It just allows you not to resist and like stigmatize something, you know what I mean? And then when you're not, and with anything, when you're in a state of non-resistance, you're going to be a lot more accepting and feel things a lot more purely and a lot more intensely, in my mind. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Definitely. And then I guess another thing that may be a reason why they're talked about together so often is like, and you, I think, mentioned it a little bit, but you can kind of have religious, or there's religions that kind of have an excuse to partake in a lot of these psychedelics. So, like, I think the most common one is peyote with Native American rituals and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, part of that maybe because they're used in religion for religious purposes so much that people just kind of put them in the same realm together for that reason. I'm not so sure, but
yeah, I think it's for certain, like in that example with peyote and the Native Americans of Texas and Mexico and stuff. I feel like that has become like one of their sacraments, you know what I mean? And that's very tied to it. I mean, they found like the peyote dolls from like 6,000 years ago. So, I mean, the fact that they've been using it that long shows that it's very tied to their religion and is kind of even part of it, you know what I mean? For all of the like ceremonial type rituals, yeah.
definitely. What dolls are you talking about? Just in case I don't really know. I'm sure some other
So
people
they found the oldest evidence of like that we found of psychedelics in history is there's these little peyote dolls that they were like little like literal dolls, you know what I mean, like little like you would imagine a child's doll, but they were made out of peyote, and they're like something, they were made out of like the actual material of the cactus, but they actually found psychedelic residue, and they think that like these dolls were part of the peyote ceremonies, and it's like that is the oldest actual archaeological evidence we have to find that people were using psychedelics in their cultures and stuff. So yeah, it's really fascinating. You should look up the peyote dolls after the conversation, but it's like they're so like from 6,000 years ago, and they're actually kind of intricate, and like it's really really profound when you think about 6,000 years ago they were crafting these dolls out of the same plant that is part of their religious sacrament. Like that was pretty profound when I first saw that.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I'm definitely looking that up right after. And then just one other thing I kind of want to mention is with a lot of these studies that they're doing on psychedelics, something I thought was interesting, I think I heard like yesterday, is they had a study of doing psychedelics with creatives like artists, musicians, whatever, doing psychedelics with people who have mental illness like post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, whatever. And there's like 3 or 4 groups that like you're like, oh, that makes sense. Like, oh, that makes sense. I'm sure they found something there. And then one of the groups that they did a test with was priests and rabbis, which I don't know. I just thought that one, I just think it's funny to just like literally imagine a bunch of priests and rabbis tripping.
That's a joke waiting to happen. A priest and a rabbi walk into a bar and take some mushrooms.
Exactly. But then when you think about it, it kind of like makes a little bit of sense. Is like those are the most religious people in the world, and like it'd be interesting to know what they think or what they feel when they're on that. Like, do they get extra close to God? Do they think that it's do they think that's evidence of God, or are they like kind of like, this is bullshit, this is make believe, and like not the real experience that we're looking for?
Yeah.
But I don't know, I thought that was pretty cool, and I think it would be pretty cool if I know I would have been a lot more intrigued and into religion growing up if we were tripping at like Sunday school and stuff.
Yeah. Well, what I think is intriguing about it is if you're like abide by, you know, if you're religious and you believe that God is the creator and he put every species and whatever on this earth, that it would be almost using the transitive property. It's kind of undeniable that God doesn't have a relationship with these things that he created. So it's like, it's sort of like Duncan Trussell talked about this, and he didn't use God per se. He kind of did it in more of a concept of like Gaia, or like a conscious earth. But say God, it doesn't really matter. It's like these things, like let's say mushrooms, for example, they're nodes that get produced by the earth that allow, when we consume them, allow us to be more understanding of the earth, want to like less likely to harm it and things like that. So I mean, I think if you do believe in God as the creator, then why would he create these things that allow us to get closer to those feelings in like or you know what I mean, they kind of belong here. And the fact that our brain can even process them, that we have receptors, like if we weren't meant to process them and have these types of experiences, that we would just eat them and they'd just be another food, right? So it's like we've evolved, or maybe they were always there, or maybe through evolutionary biology we've gained the receptors. I don't know, but the fact that they're on the earth and the fact that our brains can break them down, I mean, if you abide by God, I think that is, he has some doing with that. And going kind of back to the beginning of the conversation, one of the things I said, how it kind of can make it more visceral and bring you closer to that feeling of God or the source or whatever, is I think it's interesting because for me, and like you've said this too, where with meditation you get those Zen states. Some of my most profound experiences where I feel the closest to that, the source or God or whatever, and I feel it flowing through me, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm connected to everything. There's something deeper. There's something more. I didn't ever have that super strong before psychedelics, because I've found spirituality and psychedelics around the same time and stuff like that. So I feel like for me that was a huge catalyst. It's because I don't want to ever sound like it's something that you can just like abuse. It's like, all right, well, every time I want to feel close to God, I take this. Actually the opposite for me. Like I've taken it, and now I'm like, wow, I understand what that feeling is like, and how do I get there without that? Because, I'm very big into mind over matter, like Wim Hof type methodology, meditation. So I think psychedelics were really powerful for me because it gave me that visceral feeling of it that I didn't know was there, that I was in that state of resistance with. And then once I could accept it for the first time with the aid of a catalyst, you know what I mean? Then I'm like, oh wow, that is there, that does exist. And it's almost like a checkpoint in a video game. Like no matter how upset you are, it's like, oh, I can go back to that checkpoint and remember that feeling and remember how real that was. So even if I'm not currently on the same substance I was, like I can curate that mind state, I can curate that feeling in a sober way. So I think that's where the real beauty of them is. It's not like a lot of drugs where it's like, to get the feeling you need to take it to get the feeling, you know what I mean? This is something that you can take it once and it can permanently facilitate your ability to produce that feeling within yourself, and that's magic in my mind. That's like true beauty. So
Yeah, I love that analogy of the video game checkpoint. That's I think that's a perfect analogy. It's like once you take, and I tell people all the time, once you take psychedelics, the thoughts that you have stay with you forever. You can't go back to the beginning. And I think that video game checkpoint explains that perfectly. Is like no matter what, once you took it that first time, you're not from the beginning again. You're starting from wherever that thought brought you. I like that a lot. Pretty cool. Well, that's all. We could talk about religion all day. I'm sure some people literally do. In Judaism, I don't know if you know, like there's people who go to, I'm like blanking on the name right now, something called yeshiva, and they literally get taken care of to just study all day and talk religion. And
that's cool. It's like patronage for like religious scholars type of deal.
yeah, and it's a little bit it's a little much, like to just do that much, but it would be fun for like a week to, especially with some psychedelics mixed in, to just like talk religion all day.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. It certainly is. But that is all. Much love from the mushroom. Thank you very much. Like, subscribe. Please listen. We got a special episode. This is a reminder for Danny as well, coming later this week. Second episode. We're talking to a pretty popular ex-con, so it'll be nice to hear from someone who's been in jail about doing something that's against the law, but super beneficial. So if you have any questions for him, please let us know. We will make sure to ask him. Thank you so much. Love you guys as always. Peace.
Much love.
And I went to go stop recording, but I'm not recording. Awesome. Thanks for taking care of that. I feel like that wasn't